The Galactic Embassy on Earth was a place of wonder. Different species from across the stars came here to talk, trade, and build peace. It had huge meeting halls, glowing gardens, and even special pools for aliens who lived in water. Leo, a human, in his early 30s, worked there, not as a soldier or diplomat but as a janitor. He cleaned the walkways, emptied waste bins, and made sure everything was neat and safe. He liked the quiet, and the aliens mostly ignored him, which was fine by him. He wasn't there for glory, just a stable job. That afternoon, the embassy was quieter than usual. Most of the visitors were at a big trade meeting, and Leo was finishing up early. He walked past the aquatic zone, a large area filled with pools made for alien species who needed water. Most of them had already left. He stopped when he heard a strange splash. At first, he thought it was just a fish or some auto cleaner. But then he heard it again, another splash followed by a high-pitched squeak. It didn't sound like a machine. It sounded like someone in trouble. Leo turned sharply and walked toward the pool's edge. The water was crystal clear, glowing faintly, blue under the ceiling lights. The pool was deep, meant for species who could breathe underwater or float with ease. Near the far corner, something was moving. At first, he couldn't make it out, but then he saw her. A small figure, barely half the size of a human child, was struggling to stay afloat. She had pale bluish skin and soft silver hair that floated around her like threads. Her limbs were thin and delicate. She was sinking, her hands reaching up weakly. Leo didn't think. He dropped his cleaning pad and ran. He kicked off his shoes and dove in. The water was cold, not icy, but it bit at his skin. He swam quickly, pushing forward with strong strokes. The tiny alien girl wasn't far, but she was sinking fast, her small frame slipping below the surface. He reached her just in time. She wasn't moving much now, just a weak twitch of her fingers. Leo grabbed her carefully, wrapping one arm under her back and the other under her knees. She was light as air. He swam back to the edge with her in his arms and lifted her out. She wasn't breathing. Hey, stay with me," he said, laying her gently on the floor. He didn't know alien biology, but she looked too still. He pressed his ear to her chest, barely a sound. Her skin was cool, but not freezing. He tapped her cheeks gently. "Come on. Breathe." Suddenly, she let out a soft cough. Then another. Water spilled from her lips, and she opened her eyes, large and full of fear. They were a glowing shade of violet, and they locked onto Leo's face. She tried to speak, but no words came. Just a soft whimper. Leo smiled gently. "You're safe now. You're okay." She didn't understand the words, but she must have understood the tone. Her little arms wrapped tightly around his chest, and she clung to him, shaking like a leaf. That's when the alarms went off. A group of alien guards and medics rushed in. One of them pointed a scanner at Leo and shouted something in a language he didn't understand. Another knelt beside the girl and began checking her vitals. "She's stable," the medic said in English. "You saved her." Leo stepped back, letting them take her. "Who is she?" the guard answered. "Sia, daughter of Counselor Reeks. She's very important." Leo blinked. She nearly drowned. She was never supposed to be near the deep pools. "Someone will answer for this," the guard said firmly before following the medics as they rushed Sia away. Leo stood there, dripping wet and confused. He looked around. No one thanked him. No one clapped. But something inside him felt right. He hadn't hesitated. He'd done what anyone should have done. But deep down, he knew not everyone would have jumped in. Hours later, Leo sat in the small break room, wrapped in a towel, sipping warm tea. His shift had been cut short, and someone from embassy security had asked him a dozen questions. Then the head of human liaison officers arrived. "You're being recognized for bravery," she said, handing him a digital tablet. "Word is spreading. The alien delegation is shocked. They say it's rare for a human, especially a civilian, to risk their life like that." I didn't really think about it, Leo replied. She was just drowning. Well, now she's alive. And she's asking for you. Only for you. Leo looked up. Me? She won't speak to the doctors, won't even look at her guards, just keeps asking in her native tongue, "Where is the one who dove?" Leo set the cup down slowly. Something told him this was only the beginning. Leo stood awkwardly outside the medical wing of the Galactic Embassy. His clothes were still a bit damp, and he had no idea why the guards were treating him like someone important. He was just a janitor, a normal human who happened to be in the right place at the right time. But inside the medical bay, someone very special was asking for him. The door hissed open. A tall, slim alien woman with blue-green robes stepped out. Her skin shimmered faintly, and her voice was soft but firm. "You are the one called Leo?" "Yes, ma'am," he said, standing up straight. "She is awake. She refuses to eat. She speaks only one word in your language. Your name. Please come inside." Leo nodded, nervous but curious. He followed the woman into the bright, clean room. Strange machines blinked and beeped softly. And in the center, lying on a padded bed, was the same small alien girl he had pulled from the water. Sia. She looked up the moment he entered. Her violet eyes lit up and she sat up with sudden energy. She chirped something quickly in her native tongue and reached out. Leo smiled awkwardly. "Hey there. You're looking better." She didn't understand all the words, but she smiled back. Carefully, she climbed down from the bed and walked straight to him, her small hand wrapped around his fingers. The alien nurse raised an eyebrow. She has never reacted this way to anyone. Sia tugged gently on Leo's arm, guiding him to sit beside her on the edge of the bed. She pointed at her chest. "Sia." Leo nodded. "Sia, I remember." She then tapped his chest. "Leo," he chuckled. "Close enough." The nurse watched silently for a while, then stepped out of the room to give them privacy. For the next hour, Sia showed Leo simple things. A drawing she made, a gift the doctors gave her, and her favorite fruit, which was pink and shaped like a spiral. She spoke in short phrases, often mixing her language with English, but she was learning fast. Leo noticed something else too. Sia seemed lonely. He asked the nurse later, "Where are her parents?" The nurse hesitated. "They are not often present. Counselor Rix is her father. Very powerful. Very busy. Her mother is gone." "Oh," Leo said softly. "She has no friends. She is small for her species and shy. She avoids others. Until you." Leo didn't know what to say. He wasn't trained for this, he wasn't a teacher or a doctor. But when he looked at Sia's eyes, he saw trust. She had nearly died, and he had been the one who held her in that moment of fear. That bond couldn't be explained with science or politics. Over the next few days, Leo was allowed to visit Sia often. At first it was just short visits, but soon she began requesting longer ones. The embassy noticed something strange. Sia started improving. She ate more, laughed more, even slept peacefully. Before Leo, she had trouble doing all those things. One afternoon, as Leo entered her room, he found her sitting with a translator device. "Leo, brave," she said proudly. He blinked. "Where did you learn that?" She tapped the translator. "Leo, save." He smiled. "Well, you're pretty. Brave too, you know." You held on. She tilted her head. "Friends?" Leo hesitated for a moment, but then he nodded. "Yeah, friends." Sia's smile stretched across her small face. It was pure joy. She leaned forward and hugged him gently. At that moment, a group of aliens passed the window, whispering to each other. Leo didn't notice, but others had started watching closely. Not everyone was happy about the connection forming between a human janitor and the daughter of a high-ranking alien leader. Later that day, Leo was called into a formal office. It was quiet and serious. Inside were 3 alien officials and 1 human ambassador. "Leo," said the human representative, "we appreciate your help. You've done something incredible." "Thank you," Leo said slowly, sensing the tension. "But some of our alien colleagues are concerned." Leo looked around. Concerned? About what? One of the alien officials with silver scales and glowing eyes leaned forward. "Sia is the daughter of a counselor. Her behavior matters, her attachments matter." Leo frowned. "I didn't do anything wrong, she needed help." "And you gave it," said the human ambassador quickly. "But things are delicate, we must balance peace, protocol, and respect for alien customs." Leo leaned forward. "Are you telling me not to see her?" "No," the ambassador said. "Not yet. But be careful. Don't teach her things that might upset her father. Don't act like a guardian. You're still just a visitor in her world." Leo clenched his fists, but he nodded. He wasn't going to start a war, but he wouldn't let her be alone either. That evening, as he prepared to leave the embassy, Leo found a small envelope in his locker. Inside was a folded paper with a drawing. It was a picture of him diving into the pool. Next to it, Sia had drawn herself smiling and holding his hand. At the bottom, in shaky English, she had written, "Thank you for not letting go." Leo stared at the words for a long time. Then he folded the paper gently, placed it in his pocket, and walked out into the night, knowing he was now part of something bigger than himself. The story of Leo and the little alien girl, Sia, spread across the galactic embassy like fire in dry grass. Most people called Leo a hero. News networks even mentioned the rescue on Earth and nearby space stations. Human saves high counselors. Daughter became a headline seen on screens everywhere. Some praised him, others watched in silence. Sia, however, didn't care about any of that. She only cared that Leo visited her each day. She waited for him by the window, her small legs swinging, as she sat on the wide ledge. When she saw him enter, she would jump down and run into his arms. She had started speaking more English, her words slow but full of feeling. "Leo, I draw picture. You, swimming. Me, safe." Leo chuckled. "You're getting better every day." Sia grinned proudly. "Because I want to talk to you." They spent time drawing, sharing snacks, and walking in the garden behind the medical wing. Leo would tell her Earth stories about oceans, music, and birds. She listened carefully, eyes wide with curiosity, but not everyone was happy. From the upper levels of the embassy, Counselor Rix, Sia's father, watched their growing bond with concern. His advisors whispered warnings in his ear. The human may influence her too much. She trusts him more than her own kind. This may hurt future talks with Earth. But Rick said nothing. He only stared at the screen showing his daughter laughing beside a janitor. His face remained calm, but his eyes held a storm. One morning, Leo arrived at the embassy like always, but the security officer stopped him at the door. "Leo, you have to wait today," the guard said quietly. "Why?" Leo asked. "Is she okay?" "She's fine, but she's being moved. Official order." Leo's heart dropped. "Moved where?" "Somewhere private. Only family is allowed." Before he could say more, a message flashed on his wristpad. "Visitor access revoked. Do not enter medical wing." Leo stood there frozen. Something had changed. Inside the embassy, Sia sat in a silent room. Her drawings had been taken away. The translator device was gone. 2 guards stood outside, and her usual nurse had been replaced by someone new. Cold. Distant. She asked about Leo. No one answered. She asked again. This time, she was told not to speak of him. Tears welled up in her eyes. She didn't understand. Why was her friend not coming? What did she do wrong? She folded a piece of cloth into a bird, something Leo taught her, and held it close. She whispered softly, "Leo, come back." Back at his small apartment in the workers' district, Leo couldn't stop pacing. He felt helpless. He wasn't a soldier or politician. He had no power, but he had his voice. The next day, Leo walked into the human liaison office and asked for a meeting. "I need to talk to the ambassador," he told the assistant. "Do you have an appointment?" The assistant replied, "I saved the life of a counselor's daughter, and now she's being locked away. So no, I don't have an appointment, but I have something to say." The ambassador heard him. Inside the meeting room, Leo stood firm. "She's a child. She's not a threat. She's scared and confused, and I won't stay quiet while she's treated like a prisoner." The ambassador sighed. "Leo, this is complicated. There are politics involved. I didn't jump into that pool for politics. I did it because she was drowning, and she still is, just in a different way." The ambassador looked at him for a long time. "We'll try to speak with their side. But be careful, Leo. One wrong step and this becomes a diplomatic mess." Meanwhile, someone else noticed Sia's sadness. A young alien technician named Kale, who had helped Leo clean the water systems before, saw how Sia looked through the glass window of her room. Quiet, curled up, and holding a tiny folded cloth. Birdkale remembered how happy she used to be with Leo. That night, Kale snuck into the back hallway and tapped on Leo's window. Leo opened it, surprised. "Kale? I can help you," the alien whispered. "But you must be quick." Together, they made a plan. The next day, during the time when the security shift changed, Leo entered the side entrance Kale had unlocked. He moved quickly through the empty corridor and reached the back of the medical wing. There, through a small window, he saw her, curled up facing away, still holding the cloth bird. He tapped the glass gently. Sia turned, her eyes widened, and she ran to the window. "Leo," she cried with joy, pressing her tiny hands to the glass. "I'm here," he said softly. "I didn't forget you." She looked at him, her eyes full of questions. He placed a hand over his heart. "I'll fix this." And then, footsteps approached. Leo vanished back into the hallway, slipping away before the guards could see him. That night, Sia smiled for the first time in days. She had seen him. He hadn't left her. He hadn't forgotten. And Leo, now, more certain than ever, knew what he had to do. This wasn't just about one girl anymore. This was about speaking up when others stay silent. Sia sat quietly in her small room inside the embassy's secure wing. The walls were plain, and the only window looked out to a distant garden she could not visit. The folded cloth bird was still clutched tightly in her hand. It was the last, small thing that reminded her of Leo. She missed him more than she could say. Her father's voice had echoed through the halls all day, full of commands and worry. She knew he wanted to protect her, but she felt trapped, like a bird in a cage. At night, she whispered to herself, "I want to be free." One evening, when the guards were changing shifts, Sia made her decision. She would find Leo. She needed to see him again. Carefully, she slipped out of bed and moved toward the door. The guard was dozing at his post. She tiptoed past him, heart pounding. She navigated the quiet hallways, guided by memory and the tiny pieces of kindness the embassy staff had shown her. At last, she reached the garden. The moonlight shone softly on the flowers. It was here, she thought, that Leo and she had talked before. Suddenly, she heard a voice. "Looking for someone?" Leo stepped out from behind a tree. He smiled gently. Sia ran to him, tears shining in her violet eyes. "I want to stay with you," she said simply. Leo's face softened. "I want that too." But then he hesitated. "Sia, your father, your family, they want to send you away. They think it's safer." She shook her head, fiercely. "I don't want to go. I want to stay on Earth." Leo looked down. "It's not that simple. They have rules, laws we don't understand." Sia reached out and took his hand. "I don't care. I want to be free. I want to choose." Leo felt a fire grow inside him. This little alien girl, so small and fragile, was stronger than many adults he knew. "We'll figure this out," he promised. The next day, Leo went straight to the embassy's press room. The reporters were already waiting, their cameras and microphones ready. He stood before them and spoke clearly, his voice steady. "She's just a child. A little girl who was drowning. I saved her life because it was the right thing to do. Now she's being held away from everyone she knows. I'm asking, no, I'm begging, that she be allowed to choose her own path." The room was silent. Then cameras flashed. News channels across Earth and many alien worlds broadcast Leo's words. People began to ask questions. Why was this little girl being treated like a prisoner? Why was a simple human janitor speaking for her? Support poured in. Messages came from ordinary people, from alien diplomats who admired Leo's courage, and from children who dreamed of friendship across the stars. Inside the embassy, the pressure was rising. Counselor Reeks was furious. His daughter had become a symbol of hope and fear all at once. He met with his advisors, demanding control, but some voices in the council urged caution. She is human's friend. Perhaps this is a chance, one said. Ricks's anger softened, if only a little. That evening, Sia was called to a meeting with her father. She entered the grand room, where her father sat tall and proud. "Sia," he said, voice low but serious, "you have made a choice. You want to stay on Earth." "Yes," she said firmly. "You understand this may bring danger. You may lose honor. You may face enemies." "I understand," she replied. He looked at her for a long time. Finally he nodded. "Then I will allow it. But you must be careful." Sia smiled, a weight lifting from her small shoulders. She thought of Leo waiting outside. Days later, Sia stood in the embassy garden with Leo. She was no longer afraid. Together, they looked at the stars. Leo held her hand gently. A new future was beginning. A future where a tiny alien girl and a human janitor could change the meaning of friendship, trust, and hope. The day had come. Sia stood beside Leo in a small, specially made pool in the embassy garden. The pool was shallow and warm, perfect for her species. The water looked clear and inviting, like a small lake under the bright sky. She smiled, her violet eyes shining with excitement. Leo watched her carefully. "Are you ready?" Sia nodded. "Okay," Leo said. "Just like I showed you. Relax your arms and kick your legs slowly." She took a deep breath and slipped into the water. First, she floated awkwardly. Her limbs moved hesitantly, but Leo was there, close enough to catch her if she slipped. Sia giggled. Slowly, she began to move with more confidence. She kicked, and the water carried her forward. Leo cheered quietly, proud of her. After a few minutes, Sia turned to him and smiled wide. "I swim," she said happily. Leo laughed. "You sure do." The garden was quiet except for their laughter. Nearby, some embassy staff watched in surprise. The little alien girl who could not swim a week ago was now moving like a fish. More importantly, the human who had saved her was no longer just a janitor. He was a guardian, a teacher, and a friend. News about Sia's progress spread quickly. The Galactic Council officially announced that Sia would remain on Earth for her safety and education, under Leo's care. Many were happy. Others still doubted. But Leo didn't care. He only knew one thing: he was proud to be her friend. One evening, Leo and Sia sat under the stars. Sia rested her head on his shoulder. "Leo," she said softly, "thank you." "For what?" "For saving me, for staying with me, for being my family." Leo smiled and looked at the sky. "No matter what happens," he said, "we'll face it together." Sia nodded. From that day forward, their story became a symbol, not just of courage or friendship, but of humanity, of kindness that crosses planets, of hope that shines even in the darkest places. And it all started with one simple choice: a human who saw a tiny alien drowning and didn't hesitate to save her.